In this video, I just want to talk about friction. So at the basic level, friction is a force between two surfaces that are touching each other. And there are some situations in which friction is helpful and some where it is not helpful. Okay, so I'm just going to show you a few pictures where friction is helpful and a few other pictures where it is not helpful. But first of all, let's start with what the force is. So if you look at that diagram at the top, it shows that friction is acting towards the left and the motion of the object is towards the right. So in other words, friction opposes motion. So if motion is towards the right hand side, then friction is moving towards the left hand side. And if you look again at the diagram below that, you also have friction acting in the opposite direction to the motion provided by the pushing force. So there are practical situations in which friction is very useful. For example, if you're mountain climbing, you want to have grip. The equipment that you're using should be able to take advantage of friction. So in this case, friction is quite useful. If you look at the shoes that the man is using, they have a lot of grip underneath them, and also the equipment that he's using is helping him to stay up there and not fall over. Okay, so in this case, friction is quite useful. So that's just one situation. Again, those two, are taking advantage of the usefulness of friction as a force between two objects which are in contact with each other. Okay, so that's another example of where friction is quite useful. Okay, in this picture then you've got a skier. So skiers wax the bottom of their skis to make them very smooth. This reduces friction and allows them to ski faster. So if you're skiing, then friction is not a very useful force to you, and the equipment is designed to be able to reduce as much friction as possible, because then that makes you a more efficient skier and you become a faster skier, because the whole point of skiing and competing when you're skiing is to be the fastest person. So in this case, friction is not very useful. Okay, so you want to reduce it as much as possible. You also want to reduce friction between the kite and the surrounding air, so you need to have an aerodynamic shape for the equipment that you're using, so that you reduce as much air resistance as possible, which is a form of friction because there is movement through a fluid such as air. So there is contact between the equipment and the air, which causes friction. So in this case, the more friction you have, the less efficient you're going to become, and the slower and the more difficult it is going to become for you to travel. So you want to have as little friction as possible when you are gliding through the air. Okay, so just to recap, friction is a force between two surfaces that are touching each other, and there are some situations in which friction is helpful and some where it is not helpful. Okay, we'll leave this one here, and I'll meet you in the next video.